Breaking news. Obviously, we got to talk about this. I wasn't planning on talking about the firing of Robert Saleh, the New York Jets head coach, but we have to. I don't know if you are a team that is playing a London game and your coach is on the hot seat, you just better be prepared that you're going to be fired. Robert Saleh said that he was caught blindsided. No, I didn't think the Jets would fire him this early either. We're going to be talking about this subject matter a little bit deeper. We're going to be breaking down a lot of things on this episode. I think we've got a lot to cover here. We also have former NFL quarterback Kurt Benkert, who's going to be breaking down some things about the quarterback position, some things that he saw last night in the Monday Night Football game. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the Robert Saleh news and him being fired by the New York Jets here after 5 weeks of the NFL season, with the Jets sitting at 2-3 off of back-to-back losses. What else are we going to be getting to? Well, we're going to be talking about the thing that I wanted to talk about at the top of the show, which is pretty interesting in my opinion, and that is Pittsburgh. Do they have a George Pickens problem? Their wide receiver number one seems to be rebelling on the field against them. We're going to be digging into that. We're going to be digging into the importance of explosive plays with Green Bay Packers head coach Matt LaFleur, his comments on being explosive and how important that is. We're going to be talking about the red zone failures of the Kansas City Chiefs, of the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to talk about the Buffalo Bills in crunch time. Sean McDermott still does not know how to win these types of games, still has no understanding of what's needed. This is why I don't believe Josh Allen will win a Super Bowl while he has Sean McDermott as his head coach. And we're going to be going over strength of schedule. We're going to be taking your questions. Thank you guys all in the chat. Hopefully, we'll get some of Kurt's fans in here as well. Kurt, feel free to retweet the post that we just did live if you want to. But we are going to be bringing on Kurt right now. Let's go ahead and discuss the Robert Saleh firing with him. Kurt, first of all, welcome to the Sharp Football Show. We're super happy to have you on as a guest. Obviously, former NFL quarterback. Now you tell the fans a little bit. You've got a YouTube channel. You talk a lot about the plays and break down the film on YouTube. Why don't you give some of the folks from my side of things, the Sharp Football family, a little bit of background and insight into what you're currently doing right now?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me first and foremost. But yeah, I started on YouTube, social media while I was playing. And then there was a point where I had to pivot a little bit and go full into media. And it started with Madden, teaching football, teaching concepts through the visual tool that is Madden. And now it's doing film breakdowns with Pocket Presence with Sleeper on that YouTube channel. I do 3 quarterback breakdowns a week, and then we do a Friday show. And then, yeah, it's just been a little bit of teaching football to the younger audience, and then also do my film breakdowns a little less detailed than some of the other guys that you see, to try to bring it to how I talk it to you if we're on the couch together watching the game. So I try to bring it a little bit more casual.
I love it. And look, I'm a firm believer in the tool of Madden to help coaches understand end of game situations and tactical situational football. I am a firm believer that these coaches, and we're going down a rabbit hole, but I guess we're going to be talking about Robert Saleh here in a minute anyways. But I just want to get the takeoff as you brought up the Madden topic. More coaches need to sit there and play Madden so that they can understand these end of game situations and decision making late in games. It's not the end all be all, but it absolutely would help. And the reason is because I feel in my discussions with coaches, far too many of them sit there, they watch their own game, they game plan looking at opponents. Like, let's pretend you're the offensive head coach. You are a head coach and you are calling plays. You are studying the opponent's defense like a little bit over a week in advance. The Sunday night, Monday morning, you're trying to install your game plan, and you're based on your opponent defense. You're not watching all the end of game scenarios from all the other teams that have happened. You're not practicing what you would do in those situations. Whereas we as fans, especially as sports bettors, are sitting on our couch watching all 16 games. We're seeing all these end of game scenarios unfold. We know what's right. We know what's wrong. We know what's more likely to win or cover a game for us. And so we have a better understanding of this, whereas coaches don't. And that's why playing Madden, for example, is a great simulator tool to help figure some of these things out at the end of the games.
It is. And that's a great point too. When I was playing, I spent so much time studying my game plan for every week and watching the film of that opponent every week. You only dedicate a little bit of time to situational football. Like you do that a lot in the offseason, but situations change. They have a Friday slideshow of all the things the teams effed up around the week. And like that's kind of all we got to see. Where now that I'm not playing, I've watched more football in the last 2 years than I had probably my entire NFL career by a landslide, because you only have so much time in a day and you have plays that you have to learn and the game plan's different every week. And to a coach's point, you have a lot that you're thinking about in the heat of the moment. And I don't understand why more coaches don't have at least a right-hand man that all of it their job is to, hey, take a time out here, don't ask me why. Or hey, don't take a time out here, don't ask me why. There needs to be someone right there that can just guide them and steer them and take the emotion out of the game. I mean, how many times do you see people waste timeouts, get the backed up safeties, don't run out the clock like you saw McDermott do? Like, you have to almost put yourself into the other team's shoes. What are they hoping happens? That Texans game, the Texans were hoping that they had a chance to force them to punt so they'd get the ball at midfield, get 10 yards, and kick a game winning field goal. That's what they were hoping to do. And when you see teams time and time again, like the Bills, doing what other teams are hoping they do in this situational blunder, it just happens too often in this league, and these coaches get paid way too much money. And at the end of the day, a game like Madden, call it whatever you want to call it, you're in the same situation or different situations that you're practicing over and over and over again, and you only coach one game a week. Where in Madden, you could play 10, 15, 20, people get after it in Madden. They play a lot of games. They're actually in more of those situations over the course of a year than an NFL coach is, if you take the emotion out of it. And I just think there's, I don't know, some coaches are a little bit too stuck up to accept that as a fact.
Well, you're absolutely right. I love the point that you made about the fact that these coaches need to put themselves in their opponent coach's shoes. What do we wish they did? And if you are calling the game late to do what they wish you did, then you're probably calling it wrong.
Exactly.
And this actually ties into Robert Saleh perfectly. Robert Saleh is sitting here prior to this game over in London, telling the team and telling the media that we need to reduce the amount of audibles. We need to reduce the cadence that we're doing at the line of scrimmage because it's causing problems for us. And I said on last week's show, what do you think the other team is hoping that you do? You've got a weapon like Aaron Rodgers, who's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL historically at drawing teams off sides. You want, if you're the other coach, you absolutely want Aaron Rodgers not to utilize cadence. You absolutely want him to just come to the line of scrimmage and snap the ball with 1 second left on the play clock every single time. So the New York Jets should absolutely utilize his cadence and utilize that as a weapon. I don't know what Robert Saleh was thinking. Now the Jets go, after they drop this game to the Minnesota Vikings, a game that, in my opinion, was not as close as the final score indicated. And in fact, Kurt, this game would have been probably a blowout had Aaron Jones not gotten injured. Once
Totally.
Aaron Jones went down, the Minnesota Vikings could not run the football whatsoever. And so you're playing with a multi-score lead, and you're just handing the ball off and you're getting nothing out of your ground game whatsoever. Aaron Jones was a major factor in that game, his absence. So I think that played a big role here. Now we're not seeing Robert Saleh. I hear that the reports are saying, obviously this is live, that he was escorted out of the building. Adam Gase didn't have to be escorted out of the building, but
Oh my
Robert
God.
Saleh was actually escorted out of the building by security. He was not expecting this whatsoever. Obviously, he was upset, and they had to physically remove him from the building. What are your thoughts about the New York Jets and their decision to fire Robert Saleh here 5 weeks into the season? Their next game is Week 6 versus the Buffalo Bills. Right now, let me see what the line on that game is. It is a Monday night football game. So we have, I mean, this is ESPN's dream, right?
Yeah.
ESPN's dream is you fire the head coach right before Monday night football. You have all week to build up. The New York Jets, again, on prime time. We've seen them so much on prime time already. Now they're there, but Robert Saleh is not. Thoughts on his firing?
I think that at this point, it was needed. I think it probably could have been needed a few weeks ago. And again, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle in every NFL organization. And at the end of the day, if you, as Robert Saleh, who has never been a successful head coach in the NFL up to this point, are going to go to your starting Hall of Fame quarterback and publicly talk about him and how he needs to change what he does that got him where he is, you might be a little bit delusional and you might be a little bit out of alignment. Something that has been a weapon that if Aaron Rodgers was playing against your defense, you'd hope to God he would stop using the motions and the shifts and the cadence and all the things that make him who he is. It was never in alignment. It came down to being a little bit more delusional than I'd originally thought. And at the end of the day, what this sends to the rest of the organization is, look, it either gets turned around now or everyone is gone. And I think it does. There's no more room for error. They've got to turn it on. They've got to flip the switch. Players know when new coaches come in, your job's not safe either. So everybody in the organization has to take it up a level. I would love to see the offense just completely unleash, maybe a little bit more 2-minute. You guys saw in the 2-minute drills when the Jets actually started moving the football, Aaron Rodgers is calling his own plays. He's doing his shifts, his motion, his audibles, and they're very close. Now, look, the defensive side of the ball, I do love Albrecht. I think he's going to be a good coach. I think he leads in a different way than Saleh did, and I think that will be well received by the team. So at the end of the day, it wasn't working the way it was. It has not been since he got there. And I don't know. I think this is going to be a good thing for the Jets. It can't get any worse than what it already was. So cut it off by the head, in my opinion.
Let me ask you this, because I don't remember your exact timeline, but I know you had some time there. Did you ever work with Nate Hackett as a
Yes.
offensive coordinator, play caller?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was in Green Bay in 21 for the entire season with Hackett, Getsy, Aaron Rodgers, and Jordan Love. And
Okay.
I loved Hackett. At the end of the day, I know people rip on Hackett all the time, but he's really just coordinating to the rest of the offense, in my opinion, what needs to be done or what Aaron wants to be done. And look, it's a collaborative thing. It is not all on Hackett. He's going to take the fall offensively if they can't get things moving, but I would still give them time. I also want to say the players on offense have not been playing well. How many dropped passes have we seen? How many slips? How many this and that? Like, at the end of the day, the OC can only call so much. The Jets have had so many drop passes. They've had fumbles. They've had this and that. And in an efficient offense, you can't do that. Not many teams around the NFL can overcome a bunch of turnovers. And the offensive coordinator is not the one creating the turnovers. And there are guys open every week. There are guys not toe tapping on the sideline every week. Like the NFL you have to be so perfect, especially if you're not on a super team. So the Jets do not have a super team. Their players have to play better. The coaches have to give them more easy completions, this and that. But I don't know. This is a group effort. Nobody is playing up to their potential. Nobody, not a single person on that team. And I would hope the number one thing I'm hoping to see out of this Jets team moving forward is I want to see Garrett Wilson show up, because I don't think he's been who he's been advertised to be at any point in the season, but he has the ability to be there. He's going to be the guy that can be the spark plug for them. It's not going to be Breece Hall.
Now, it's been shocking to me how unable the Jets have been to run the football whatsoever. You look at who they played. They have played two tough defenses, the Denver Broncos and the Minnesota Vikings. You end up firing your head coach after back-to-back games against two of the most blitz-heavy defenses in the NFL. These two teams have some of the highest blitz rates. They cause some of the largest confusion, the biggest problems. Now you're going to be going up against the Buffalo Bills next week, who are without edge rusher Von Miller, who obviously has turned it on this season. He's out for several weeks with an injury, but it doesn't necessarily get easier. After that, if you look at the New York Jets schedule in terms of defenses that they're going to play as it relates to this offense, they're going to go up against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, the New England Patriots defense, the Houston Texans defense. After a while, it will get a little bit easier. You got stretches against the Cardinals defense, the Colts defense, and the Seahawks defense. Three defenses that are definitely beatable. But the next several weeks, this offense has to turn it around. Like you said, Kurt, This is now basically a warning to everybody else. You better pick it up or you're going to be next. I do agree that it's probably delusional for Saleh to think that with as much as they paid Aaron Rodgers, and then you look at what that GM and that owner sort of agreed to do after they got Aaron Rodgers. They brought in the OC handpicked by him that he wanted. They added the receivers that he wanted. Basically, this team is catered to Aaron Rodgers. And then you go out as the head coach and call out Aaron Rodgers. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially then when the team starts to fail. I wonder if Aaron Rodgers had any say-so in this in terms of echoing any comments to ownership or to like if they're like, Aaron, what's the best way we're going to turn this thing around? I wonder what he said and if he had any involvement in that. But certainly now the spotlight focuses, in my opinion, on the offensive side of the ball, right? Robert Saleh was the defensive-minded head coach. The defense, I talked about it in the offseason. This defense was playing really hard all year long for several years, despite the worst quarterback play in the NFL. Zach Wilson was delivering the worst quarterback play in the NFL. He had the lowest completion rate every single year for 3 straight years. You're not going to be able to win games like that. And yet the defense was still playing until week 15 and 16 and 17. They were still trying. At some point, you being on teams probably understand it wears on you. If the offense isn't good, that side of the football, it wears on the defense. If the offense is constantly having them go out on the field after 3-and-outs, putting them in bad position, they're not going to look as good. Their statistics aren't going to look as good. If their opposing offense is always playing from a position of strength, you need to get leads on offense. You need to have success on offense. Then your defense can play from a position of strength and have more fun rushing the quarterback. Robert Saleh was still getting those guys to play. Now he's gone. This spotlight, in my opinion, focuses directly on Hackett and Rodgers. What are they going to do here? This is their team now, and they've got to figure it out against several more difficult defenses. Where do you think they turn? It's in addition to, I'm not sure if you have any thoughts here, but just ask the question. Yes, their players need to play better. They brought in Mike Williams, and he was recovering from a knee injury off season. They were building him along slowly. You have Alan Lazard, who was a handpicked player that Aaron wanted in town. You have a strong core of running backs. You obviously have a great rookie. You have Breece Hall, but the run game isn't effective. Where would you turn offensively here? What do you think you need to do offensively? Because Garrett Wilson is your number one, but he doesn't seem to be on the same page as Aaron all of the time. And I doubt that Saleh had any influence over that. So this is a problem that was existing under Hackett and Rodgers previously. It's still going to be there. How do you spin things offensively here 5 weeks into the season, knowing that the spotlight's entirely on you to jumpstart this offense? I'm sure it will help that you're not going up against two of the most blitz-heavy defenses, but what are you looking to do offensively here?
Yeah, if I was the offensive coordinator in this situation, I'm looking to get into tempo. I'm looking to get the completions early. I'm looking to speed up the game early because the only way, in my opinion, to jumpstart this for a team like this on offense that's struggling, you have to find a rhythm early and you have to find a way to connect on those passes that open up the run game. They're not going to be a team right now, in my opinion, that can run the ball first to set up the pass. It's going to have to be reverse. And I also think it's going to, like I said, it's going to include tempo. It's going to include shifts and motions. They've got to get a little bit more creative and push the envelope and put the pressure on the defense. And something in my gut is telling me that the tempo might have been something to do with Saleh. I've been a part of teams before that were defensive minded, where the defensive head coach really was trying to slow down the offense's tempo so the defense wouldn't have the risk of going back on early on 3-and-outs. You see that with defensive minded head coaches where they just kind of can't see the perspective of the offense. And if we see a shift in that, then we'll know that that's probably where it came from. So this week is going to tell a lot. Does the play calling on offense look different? Did they get into tempo early in the game and risk some of these 3-and-outs? Because that's like, in my opinion, the chess match in the NFL. When you have an offense that's struggling, the actual time it takes to call plays, if you get into a tempo and you have a 3-and-out, the defense is going to be right back on the field in under a minute. I think the Jets have got to be riskier on offense, and we'll know who makes that decision come this Monday with how this game plan looks on the offensive side. So I know that Hackett's the one calling the plays, but there is a game script in mind that the head coach sets that I don't think people necessarily look at. But that is a real thing.
Yeah, there's absolute involvement by the head coach into the play calling. This is one of the biggest issues that I have, Kurt, with defensive-minded head coaches and their infection of their thought process onto the offensive side of the football. Like how they weave their webs onto the offensive side and does that like infiltrate and penetrate into the offensive play calling, into the offensive philosophy.
He's doing it. If he was willing to say that publicly about the cadence, about the snap count, publicly, that's what he said. What else behind closed doors was he trying to influence and say and have held over people? Like you don't know because you're not in the building. And I've seen it in real time in other organizations that I've been a part of. It is not as cut and dry as people say it is or believe it is on social media, especially not Twitter. And so to your point, the webs, the weaving, I believe that's got to be what was going on. And yeah, I hope that Monday night we see a difference because then we'll be able to kind of bring it back a little bit, reel it back in to see, okay, this was different since he left. This was different. The defensive minded head coaches, it can be tough. But you also look at the Commanders side of the ball, Dan Quinn. That offense is rolling a lot differently. And I also think that offense is rolling differently than offenses in the past that Dan Quinn was a part of. Coaches grow, they learn, the league's changing, but I don't know. You look around the league, and there's teams doing it a lot differently than the Jets have been, and it just seems so much easier. And so, yeah, I hope that we see a change on Monday.
All right, now let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk quickly about the New Orleans Saints. We watched them play last night against the Kansas City Chiefs. They were catching 6 points at one point, got bet down to 5 points eventually. And, they just did not look like they were playing in the same league as the Kansas City Chiefs for much of that game. They couldn't get anything going on the ground. Now, that's not necessarily a surprise because we've seen the Kansas City Chiefs run defense step up and stop some very good run offenses so far this season. And that's a
Mhm.
credit to Steve Spagnuolo. That's a credit to the defensive personnel as well. They've, at one point that used to be the weakness. Teams could run on the Chiefs. They've really shored that up so far this season, forced you to figure out ways to operate more one dimensionally against them. But that Saints offense just did not have the answers once that run game was not going. And we saw a similar approach, though with the different mechanisms when they played the Philadelphia Eagles, where the Philadelphia Eagles were using those heavier fronts, walking extra guys down to stop at the edge of the defensive line to really try to limit those outside zone runs from the Saints and the stretch runs and just bottle everything up and then force Derek Carr to be very one dimensional without his starting center, without some interior offensive linemen. Derek Carr gets under pressure from Chris Jones, and he panics when he's under pressure. That's definitely a historical problem for him. What do you see about the New Orleans Saints, both last night and moving forward? Obviously, assuming that it's not Jay Kaner, but Derek Carr is able to come back reasonably soon. That has you concerned a little bit about what they're doing right now on the offensive side of the football.
Last night was just a pure case of stubbornness, in my opinion. And just because you might have numbers in the run game doesn't mean that you should call the run. And they went run, run on first and second down so many times in that game, while also down against the Chiefs, while also playing in Arrowhead, while also the Chiefs were rolling on offense. You're not going to be able to run, pass on your first set of three every single drive and think that you're going to be able to keep up with a team like that. It almost looked like the play calling had no context of the game that they were playing. And sometimes you go into a game and you have a script. You have your first 25 and it doesn't go to schedule and you have to get off a script earlier. They didn't get off script soon enough. And I think it was just stubbornness on offense, not understanding the full context of the situation, and they couldn't make the plays. And on the flip side, on defense, they could not stop anything the Chiefs were doing. There were guys open all the way over, all over the field, and luckily they were able to shore things up in the red zone to at least keep them around in the game for a while. But the Saints, in my opinion, and this is going back to Dennis Allen and kind of what fans always complain about, it's they beat up on some of the teams when they get ahead in the lead and they just keep pouring it on. But the context of understanding how to navigate each game situationally, because every game is different, they just don't have it. And play calling needs to change depending on, is your run successful, even if it's a light box. Don't just keep calling run plays because the box looks good, or don't call run plays because that's what's next up on your script. I just think there's a nuance to the play calling that they have not found yet, and their schedule is not like anything easier. I earlier in the year believe they'd only win like 4 to 6 games. I made a joke that they might win one game all year, but if they play like they did last night against any team on their schedule, even the Panthers, they're not going to win games, and they've got to turn it around fast.
Yeah, and actually, Kurt, I have my strength of schedule. We're going to be talking about strength of schedule moving forward. The Saints go up against the number two easiest schedule of opposing defenses moving forward. So they have an easy schedule. They should be able to win some of these games. But to your point, they've got to figure it out. Kubiak has to figure out, if the run game's not there, how to still get a decent
Right.
pass game going and not let the pass game be massively impacted because you can't get a run game going. We saw the first couple of games where they got that run game going, then they were hitting the play action over the top and they were hitting all their big shots and it was working magically. Now we're not seeing that as much. They've got to get back on track, even if the run game is a little bit slowed down. All right, talk to me a little bit about, let you go on this one. Talk to me
Yeah.
a little bit about the Green Bay Packers, the situation that existed there with Romeo Doubs. We know that Doubs did not travel with the team to Los Angeles. We know that that seemed to create a big stir. It was a big surprise for people that aren't familiar with the situation. Romeo Doubs was at practice last Wednesday. Romeo Doubs then was not there on Thursday. The team sent somebody out to his house to figure out, why aren't you here at practice? We need you. Like we're already down Christian Watson. we need you to be stepping up here for us as a receiver in this game against the Rams. And they found him at home, not at practice. I know that you played with these players in Green Bay. You might have a unique perspective and understanding, whereas we do not. But Matt LaFleur then suspended him for 1 week. I believe he's expecting him to be back this week, is my understanding. Give us the inside scoop on what happened there with Romeo Doubs last week, why he wasn't with the team, and what we can expect from him moving forward.
Yeah, so everything that I saw most recently is that they expect him to be back with the team this week. Tomorrow's going to be Wednesday, first day of practice for the week, so we'll find out more then. I think the biggest thing about last week is I saw a lot in the media jumping to the conclusion of mental illness, mental this, mental that, like a lot of those things, and just completely bashing Romeo Doubs. What I know about Romeo Doubs is that he's extremely quiet. He doesn't speak up. And when he does have something to say, he will speak up, and he's very passionate about it. I'm hearing from my side that it sounded like there was an argument that went south. And for that to go south with Romeo Doubs, maybe there was a line that was crossed, or maybe some buttons were pressed that, I don't know, maybe he hasn't had those pressed in a while. He did not handle it the best way from what I'm hearing. And then one thing led to another, and then he just didn't show up. That's what I'm hearing. It was not this other narrative that the media spun it into. But look, there's grown men in the building. Everyone is grown men in that building, whether you're a coach, you're a player, and the relationships can get really weird sometimes. Sometimes it's coach to coach. Sometimes it's coach to player or player to coach. Things happen. People move on. And I just definitely don't want people to paint Doubs as this bad guy, because just like anybody else in the world, this is a job. In the NFL, it's a job. Yes, you get to play a really cool game on Sundays, but throughout the week, there's a lot of meetings, and there's a lot of time you're not even on the field, and there's a lot of communication and relationships to navigate. And they just had a rough stretch of football and maybe lost some games that they didn't feel like they should have, or this and that, right? Like, there's stuff that goes on in a building that doesn't even get to the light of day. It happened all the time when I was there in Green Bay. Now, Romeo Doubs just so happened to not show up to practice and put on a smiley face. So that's really what happened. Yeah, we'll see what happens this week and if anything else comes from it. But I just wanted to definitely put a little something on there, because now people are painting a picture of Romeo Doubs that is just not true. He's a dog ass competitor. He is not selfish. Yeah, he wants the ball like any other receiver, but he's not that guy. And that was not the MO of how this all started. So I hate seeing negative narratives in media, especially around a guy that I know is not selfish. And yeah, so I hope to, without giving everybody's details and all the tea, at least bring a little bit of insight to how that actually went down without, I don't want to just be the rat in the building. So
No, I appreciate that. So, just for my understanding, because I was sharing the story that was reported in Sports Illustrated on Friday night, and I had so many people come into my mentions like, don't you realize that he's got a history of mental illness or mental problems? Don't you realize, like, you need to take this tweet down because you don't understand what's going on with this guy? Somebody else was tweeting that he's scared of flying and he doesn't want to fly anymore. And so he didn't want to fly to Los Angeles. And so I'm sitting here like, I'm just reporting the
yep,
story that was shared by Sports Illustrated, but I had so many people come in and
I know
talk
how it
about these
goes.
other issues. So I just said, look, I'm not dealing with this. I took the tweet down out of potential respect for whatever could be going on, because I don't know the information, but the reporter certainly did not mention anything about fear of flying or mental issues that were going on with Dobbs. So from your perspective and from your understanding, he doesn't have a fear of flying. He doesn't have mental issues. That wasn't what was behind this.
From everything that I heard, yeah, this was an argument that went south that Dobbs maybe didn't handle the best way. Doesn't, like, that is what I'm hearing. So
Okay.
I just, does he have anxiety? I have no clue. He might not. But I think pinpointing like cause and effect when they're just really jumping to conclusions is not something that people should be doing. And so that's what I wanted to come out to the table to say of, look, those other things might be true, but like that does not mean that it caused what happened. Look,
Right. Okay.
like we deal with so many different personalities in the NFL and college football. Like, everybody has different backgrounds, everybody has different ways that they navigate arguments, people addressing issues, or people's differencing of opinions. And sometimes a coach can push a button that a player doesn't believe should be pushed because of a lack of respect. And there's people that react certain ways. And that's a lot of times why you see players get held accountable for things that coaches don't get held accountable for, because there's this hierarchy of structure. But at the end of the day, it's all men in the building. Some of these players are older than the coaches. You know what I mean? Like it's a weird dynamic. It's not like college football where it's this top down barking down on people. There's a lot more of, I guess, horizontal communication and relationships than people expect.
Well, we really appreciate this insight both on the Jets locker room, the Saints situation, and of course the Green Bay Packers with their wide receiver core. Hopefully Doubs is back there this week because the Packers obviously can use a talented player like him. Definitely appreciate you coming on the show. Hopefully you guys check out Kurt and everything that he's doing with his YouTube. You can follow him on X where he's got more details there as well. But if you want to watch the film with Kurt, I highly encourage that. You can follow him on X at Kurt Benkert. His name is handle is spelled exactly like his name,
Yes.
which is up on the screen for you. So make sure that you're checking him out. Thanks for joining us, Kurt, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Absolutely. Have a good rest of the show. See you guys.
All right, guys, that was Kurt Benkert, hopefully providing some great insight. We weren't planning on touching on the New York Jets and the firing of Robert Saleh, obviously, but it happened. We got to create some content around it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that discussion. And I know that you guys are contributing here over in the YouTube chat. Haven't been able to get to you yet, but I want to go ahead and mention, if you are watching this and streaming it on X, make sure that you go over to YouTube as well. That way you can participate in all the Q&A. We've got a lot of topics we're going to try to get through here very quickly, but probably not going to be able to get to as much as we normally do just because of the Jets news. But make sure you go over there, like the channel, subscribe to it. It's Sharp Football Analysis. Just search for that on YouTube. Actually, before we get into some more topics, I do want to mention we went 2-0 last night on Monday Night Football, 26-12 this week on football. And that's on top of, that was just the NFL. We also went 8-3 in college football, plus 14 units of profit. We've had our best season to date through 5 weeks. We are up $100 better, has won $6,235 is just week 5. So we've got a computer total live for week 5. We hit our computer total last night on the under in the New Orleans Saints Kansas City Chiefs at 43.5. Get on board to get the new computer total that's up there for week 6, and use the coupon code SHOW40 and you get 40% off any season-long package over at Sharp Football Analysis. We just reduced prices, so if you want to get on board, use SHOW40. You'll get 40% off of that. Just a hint, okay? This is a brand new show that we've got here, the Sharp Football Show. We just started this a few weeks ago. The following count is growing, the audience is growing, and we're super excited. The show quality is improving. I hope that you guys see that. We're going to be doing bigger and better giveaways on this show than we will do anywhere else because we are trying to attract you guys as a new audience. So that show 40% off season long, something we're not advertising anywhere else. Highly encourage you to take advantage of that if you're interested. Just a great season. We've had back-to-back record-breaking seasons from profit perspective, 2022, then 2023. Now we're headed that way for 2024. Just keeps going up and up and up. All right, with that said, let's get into this next topic. I really want to discuss what is going on here with the Pittsburgh Steelers and specifically George Pickens. This was a hot topic on Twitter yesterday because I tweeted out the film of all the routes that George Pickens was running. Let's break it down. All right, so I'm watching the Sunday Night Football game, and before the game, I see Steelers wide receiver number 1, George Pickens, with eye black. And look at what this eye black said. Pull that up, Matt. Full screen this sucker. You see what that says there? Open effing always. This guy means business. So then I see the game, and I'm not seeing a whole lot of targets go his way. And I certainly am not seeing a lot of catches being made by him. And in a tight, close game, I really wasn't understanding what I was watching. So I'm looking at the numbers. 67% of the Steelers snaps come versus a stacked box from the Cowboys. That was the most of any team last week. 92% of Steelers run plays came with a loaded box. 92%. Basically, you got the Dallas Cowboys daring the Steelers to throw the football. And sure enough, those running back runs, no, they weren't successful. Running back runs averaged just 3.3 yards per carry. What would you expect against 92% loaded boxes? They're not going to have a lot of success. Of their 20 runs, 0 explosives. Do you know what their longest run was of their 20 running back runs all night? Their longest run was 7 yards. It was worst of any team in the NFL last week. We're watching a run game that's not effective. They're averaging 0.35 yards before contact per rush, one of the worst marks of the week. Their running backs were not getting anywhere with that offensive line because they got stacked boxes up against them. And yet, the Steelers had a 32% pass rate on early downs to start the game. It was the most run heavy of any team in the entire week last week. Over the course of the entire game, the Steelers' pass rate was only 54%. No team that lost their game, which the Steelers did, had a pass rate of only 54%. Against those stack boxes, on 92% of runs, why weren't the Steelers passing the ball more? I didn't understand. So then I look at the George Pickens stat line after the game. He's their number 1 wide receiver. What's his stat line? The guy runs only 20 routes, the fewest of any game that he's played this year. He has only 7 targets, the number 2 fewest of any game that he's had this year. He caught only 3 passes, also the number 2 fewest of any game this year. And he produced only 26 receiving yards, the fewest of any game that he's played this year. After the game, I hear this from Mike Tomlin then, when he was asked about George Pickens. Why don't you pull that up, Matt?
Like George Pickens wasn't one of your higher snap players on offense. There was a whole series where he was on the bench in the second half. What went into that?
We just wanted to kind of minimize his reps in an effort to get more productivity. We just trying to rep manage in terms of the totality of the big picture. He wasn't less of a focal point in terms of our intentions of what we wanted to do offensively, but we did want to cut his reps a little bit in an effort to get higher quality play, just in general.
Was he not playing up to the quality that you wanted from him?
It's no different than we minimize some of the snaps of D linemen like Cam Hayward and so forth, man. It's just about snap management. It's no underlying story, to be quite honest with you.
No underlying story, to be quite honest? No, that's not being honest, Mike. And yes, there is an underlying story. When I heard this logic, I was about to really sound off on it. I know some Steelers fans did. They were pissed off about the fact that George Pickens wasn't getting utilized. Forget thinking about reducing your wide receiver 1 snaps if you're losing the game. Think about the inverse. The Steelers' thought process is that they believed it would help them win by increasing the snaps of worse wide receivers. How does that make any sense at all? But before I went on my rant about this, I watched the film. Matt, let's roll the results. Watch the Pickens film with me, guys.
Here's Pickens, top of the frame, jogging and bending his route, clearly not intending to get open for a target. Here's Pickens once again at the top of the screen. Same exact effort, same exact type of route, not even looking back for the ball at all. Bottom of the screen. Okay. And this goes on. This goes on basically the entire game. Watch this one. He jogs, and look at the bottom. This is Tomlin throwing his hands down, turning his back on the field because he's so frustrated. Pickens is just jogging on these routes, not even giving effort to try to get open. It's like I heard the excuses that he knows when he's the first or second read and he'll try on those routes. And when he's not the first read, he knows Justin Fields isn't going to be throwing him the football. And so he doesn't give full effort on those types of routes. I don't give a shit. I don't think Tomlin does either. I don't even know if that's true or not either, by the way. Clearly, Mike Tomlin is not happy with the effort that George Pickens is giving. And George Pickens doesn't care about putting this on film on national TV in front of the entire world, just embarrassing himself and not helping the Pittsburgh Steelers attempt to win this game. He is their number 1 wide receiver. You see him trying to get open? You see him trying to separate? Do you see him trying to give effort on any of these? These are not acceptable.
All right. So as you can see, I didn't like the film. Pickens is their best receiver, but he's not giving the effort to even show up. And as a result, the Steelers can't count on him. He's making life difficult for Justin Fields on the field. He's making life difficult for Arthur Smith calling the plays. He's making life difficult for Mike Tomlin in the locker room. But speaking of which, this is probably like a virus. I've heard players saying things about it or reacting to him on the bench. This is invading the bloodstream of that Pittsburgh Steelers culture. Ultimately now, just like Saleh, this falls on Mike Tomlin. What you permit, you promote. What you allow, you encourage. What you condone, you own. It sure as hell looks like the Steelers have a Pickens problem to me. And when you have a quarterback as limited as Justin Fields, you cannot allow your wide receiver one to not do his job on the field. It will literally tank the offense. Oh, and then we got the final play of the game. Want to see the most effort I saw from George Pickens all game? Here's the most effort I saw from George Pickens all game. Roll that tape, Mike.
Got the keys, I got 5 stocks and 9s in this bitch. I got cutters in a hoe. I got pounds in this bitch. I got hoes running in and on the slime in it. I go by young boy and I zip you up from talking shit. These niggas bitches and I know that they ain't broke this shit.
All right, Matt, I don't think we were supposed to play the music along with it, but that's okay. You get a flavor of what we're dealing with here when we're talking about George Pickens. He is a problem out there on the field right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not reliable. If you're asking him to run the routes and he's not putting forth the effort, what is Justin Fields is not Tom Brady in the pocket. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not processing everything. He's trying to go to his first or second read. And when one of those reads, your wide receiver one is just not even doing anything out there, can you put him out there? So I'm not sure what the Steelers are going to do from here, but Mike Tomlin, this is now on you. You've got to figure it out. All right, Matt, let's go to the next topic. All right, the chat. Yeah, you like the song. Yeah, that was definitely not supposed to be part of it. But yeah, Pickens doesn't care, Joanna. You're right. And Fields is not throwing the ball down the field, but this is nothing new. This is not like it's something new. SKJR. This is an issue that we know this about Justin Fields. We know what he does, and you can't have a wide receiver out there doing what George Pickens is doing. Okay. After their last game in Los Angeles, Matt LaFleur is asked in an interview with Peter Bukowski of Locked On Packers about the importance of dialing up explosive plays and the risk reward of trying to be efficient without having the explosive play versus trying to get that explosive play. It's a great give and take type dynamic. Let's hear what Matt LaFleur said after the game.
You've been creating splash plays, offense and defense. As a head coach, I'm sure you're like, hey, we'd love to execute better down to down, but are you kind of okay being aggressive and inviting a little bit of that variance if you can create the explosives on both sides?
Yeah, I think explosive plays lead to points. I mean, that's a fact. You know, the stats are pretty staggering when you talk about explosion plays and your ability to score, or if you don't give them up, your ability to stop people. But so that's something that we're always hunting, but it's just the consistency, I would say, down in and down out. I was talking to Jordan about this in the locker room, just in terms of, I feel like I'm losing my voice right now. It seems like we're a little bit feast or famine offensively, in terms of we either get the big plays and we go score, or there's no big plays and we're punting. So we do have to get a little bit more consistency, I would say, just making sure we're getting positive plays, staying ahead of the sticks, trying to stay out of the third downs as best we can.
All right, so obviously I completely agree with his philosophy here. I've shared the numbers on how explosive plays are impactful. We've talked about it all offseason. We talked about it last year, about the importance of explosive plays. Matt, why don't you pull up the importance of explosive plays in 2024, that graphic full screen here. Okay, look at this. If you have a drive that has 0 explosive plays, weeks 1 to 5, in 2020, you were still scoring a touchdown on 6.9% of your drives. In 2021, that dropped to 6.7%. In 2022, down to 5.5%. 23, 5.2%, and 24, all the way down to 4.6%. That is a 33% decline. It doesn't seem like a lot. You know, 6.9 to 4.6. It's a 33% decline from 5 years ago. With the rate of scoring touchdowns if you don't have an explosive play. Whereas if you have just one explosive play, you're at a 42% touchdown rate. We are talking relatively 10 times the rate for touchdowns from 4.6 to 42%. It's 10 times the rate, and you're averaging 3.7 points per drive. It is more important than ever to be explosive in 2024. Matt, now let's pull up the next chart. Which teams need explosive plays the most and which can survive without them to a degree. So here's the next chart of, if you look along the bottom, the x-axis, points per drive with one or more explosive plays. See the average there? It's right around 3.6 points per game, points per drive rather. If you have 0 explosive plays there on the left, the league average is right around 0.7 points per drive. Okay. Now, the teams that they're still not as good naturally without an explosive play. But look at a team like the Bengals. Look at the teams above the graphic. The Washington Commanders. Hey, by the way, Jack, if you're listening, Marvin Gaye over here says the coupon code for 40% isn't working. So can you fix show 40? Double check show 40. Matt, if you're able to, can you Slack over to Jack and figure out why coupon code 40 isn't working? Provide the update in my chat here so I can update Mr. Gay about that. The Washington Commanders and the Cincinnati Bengals. These teams, along with the Arizona Cardinals to a degree, and then to a lesser degree, the Chiefs and the Lions, they are efficient even when they don't have explosive plays, right? They are up at the upper echelon of the NFL. Those are solid offenses. They can still be productive without explosive plays. But keep in mind, I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals are averaging 5 points with 1+ explosive play on a drive versus 1.2 with 0. So, I mean, they naturally need explosive plays as well. Every single team in the league needs explosive plays. It's so impactful for every team. But those are the teams that are at least semi-productive without them. Look down at the bottom of the graphic, though, the bottom right-hand quadrant. You got a team like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This team cannot survive without an explosive play. They're averaging, what is that, the fourth or fifth best points per drive with one explosive play, just south of 5. But they're the league's worst offense in the NFL if they don't have an explosive play on their drive. The worst. They're worse than the Carolina Panthers. They're just over 0.2. So a lot of these teams, like the Seahawks, like the Carolina Panthers, like the Atlanta Falcons, like the Jets, these are teams that are falling below the league averages. They need explosive plays. Now, the Green Bay Packers right there in the middle, they are right on that league average line. They obviously still need explosive plays, but they're not like they're worse than average or better than average. They're right around average when they get them. Matt, do you have that last graphic on which teams are explosive? Okay, this is a great one. I love this graphic as well. Explosive play rate is along the bottom, x-axis. The least explosive teams are on the left. The most explosive teams are on the right. This is rate of which you have a 15-play gain on every play that you snap the football. And the teams that are then on the y-axis is EPA per play on non-explosive plays. So plays where you don't gain 15 plus yards, what is your efficiency on those plays? Look at the team on the bottom left there, the Cleveland Browns. They stink in terms of EPA per play when they're not explosive, and they're the least explosive team in the NFL. Steelers, not much better. The Chargers, the Patriots, they're down in this quadrant as well. The Denver Broncos, certainly as well. Teams up in the top right, these are teams that are explosive, but they're also gaining efficiency when they're not producing explosive gains. But notice all these EPA per play, when you're gaining less than 15 yards, is generally negative. I mean, most of these teams, they're most efficient when they're getting these 15-yard chunks. That's when they're getting plus EV. All these other plays, they're not. But look at the teams that are there in the top right. You got the Commanders and the Ravens, right? The two teams that are like furthest away from the bottom left of this graphic. These teams play each other on Sunday, 1 p.m. in Baltimore. And I cannot wait for that game. Washington versus Baltimore, two of the most explosive teams in the NFL and two of the teams that are also much more efficient than the league average when they aren't explosive. These two teams are going head to head. There's no wonder that total went up from 51 to 52 and a half. There's some 53s that are popping right now. If the weather is good, this game could be extremely fun and extremely explosive. Bears are creeping up in explosivity. Yes, they are. They are playing some weaker defenses, Harry Snowman. I think that that's going to continue. The Browns have a decision to make. Yes, they do, George. The Browns definitely need to figure out what they're going to be doing here with Deshaun Watson moving forward. I think it's clear that Kevin Stefanski's hands are tied. I think it's clear that he is a mouthpiece for ownership and for the GM, Andrew Berry. And I feel bad for him to an extent. I do not think this is a situation that he can call his shots. I think he's a puppet in this situation. And that stinks for him because I do think he's a decent coach. If he had autonomy, if he could do what he wanted, I would be very critical of him. Why the hell are you trotting out 3 to 4 wide receivers? These plays that you're running out of 11 and 10 personnel are not efficient. Why aren't you doing X, Y, or Z a little bit more? I think he's doing whatever he thinks Deshaun Watson wants to do. And he's throwing his hands up and he's saying, oh, I need to coach better. Again, he's a puppet right now. It sucks, but he's a puppet. This is ownership. This is the GM. This is what they're doing and what they've done to the Cleveland Browns because of that Deshaun Watson contract. Okay, we'll get to some of your, the owners are arrogant, Nick. Browns won't do anything. Owners are arrogant. I absolutely agree with you. Okay, got another topic here that I want to hit, and this is a good one. This is the topic of the shocking red zone failures of the 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. So, Matt, why don't you roll that one? Okay, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the San Francisco 49ers and their shocking red zone failures and the issues that they're going to have to address, along with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think you'll be very surprised to hear some of these stats that I'm going to lay out for you. Matt, why don't you roll the film of the 49ers and some of their plays down inside the red zone, and I'm going to share some of these stats with you guys.
Say anything you want about the 49ers and reasons for them being 2-3 right now. Their 3 losses have each come by 1 score. A 1-point loss to the Cardinals, a 3-point loss to the Rams, and a 6-point loss to the Vikings. In those 3 games, they made a total of 13 drives into the red zone. That's 4.3 per game. Now, for context, the NFL average is only 3.1 per game. And yet the 49ers scored touchdowns on just 5 of those 13 drives. 5. That's 38%. That's why they've lost those games by 1, 3, and 6 points. Say what you want about anything else, it's not relevant. If they score in the red zone, they are 5-0. Instead, they are 2-3. Last year, the 49ers were number 1 in red zone conversion rate at 67%. This year, they're number 29 at 41%. Last year, they were number 4 in goal-to-go conversions at 83%. This year, they're number 31 at 50%. I mean, do you realize that the 49ers are number 2 in the NFL at driving into the red zone? Nearly 50% of their drives reach the red zone. They're number 2 in drive length. They're averaging 41 yards per drive. Both of those numbers are better this year than they were last year. They're the number 2 best team at driving all the way to the red zone, yet they're the number 2 worst team at converting near the end zone. The 49ers' early down efficiency in the red zone has been a major problem. The early down pass success rate is down from 55% to 43%. The early down rushing success rate is down from 54% to 41%. And on third down, yikes, they have a 20% success rate and average minus 0.66 EPA per play. Last year, they were at 55% success with plus 0.75 EPA per play. They don't have CMC. So the easy button is gone for Kyle Shanahan. But this is now squarely on him. He must figure out ways to score touchdowns. They're good enough to drive all the way down there. The play calls and the execution is just not good enough at the goal line, and it's costing them wins. And for Andy Reid's Chiefs, well, fortunately, the failures haven't cost him wins. They're undefeated. But they, too, are among the NFL's best at driving to the red zone at number 6, yet they rank number 30 in red zone efficiency. Like the 49ers, they too lost their stud running back, Isaiah Pacheco. He's gone. Due to injury, we're not sure exactly when he's going to be back. But Andy Reid is smart enough, and they must spend their bye week devising a more sound strategy near the end zone, or they too could drop some winnable games just like the San Francisco 49ers have done. And as we know, every single one of these games counts as it relates to home field advantage, as it relates to the ability to have long sustained playoff success and make it back to the Super Bowl. Both of these teams simply must get better when they're down near the red zone. They're far too good, and they've proven it over the other 80 yards of the football field. But once they get into the red zone and in goal-to-go situations, their failures have been costing their teams dearly. And for the 49ers, it's cost them wins. And for the Kansas City Chiefs, that very well could happen in the future unless they get this straightened soon.
All right, let's get to a couple of your comments on this. I see Scotty says the red zone issues are CMC related. Ian says it's the McCaffrey effect. I don't disagree to an extent, but how is the team the second best in the NFL at getting to the red zone? You don't have CMC, so you're still getting to the red zone at the number 2 highest rate. Kyle Shanahan should be able to figure this out. I know he doesn't have CMC, but he's second best in the NFL at getting there without CMC. How can he be the second worst at converting when he's down there in goal to go? This is simply a play calling and execution, and it falls on Kyle Shanahan's shoulders. So I understand it does seem logical. Yes, Bird Fire Horticulture says losing Pacheco is more impactful than losing Rice. I don't agree with that, but I do think that, well, actually, I have to process that a second. I think Pacheco provides more on the ground game, but I think obviously the upside from Rice is better. But Andy Reid is so good at designing pass plays. Bottom line is losing Pacheco down inside of the red zone is problematic when you're down there and you're trying to punch it in just like CMC. But both of these offensive-minded coaches are good enough to figure it out. The good news, again, for the Chiefs is that they've avoided those losses. The 49ers have not. I mean, for me personally, I'm happy because they're losing some of these games that they should be winning. And so when I'm bet their win total under, it's benefiting me. I'm happy that they're dropping some of these games, but it doesn't make any sense that they are having those problems down there in the goal to go if they're that good over the rest of the field, CMC there or not. Kyle should be able to figure this out, and it falls on Kyle. Is Purdy struggling inside of the red zone? Yes. Why aren't the Chiefs using Kelsey more inside the red zone? Again, I'm sure that he gets the focus of the defense, but if he gets the focus of the defense so much, and I haven't looked at the all-22 from last night, David, then that should leave other options for other guys. And obviously we know Patrick Mahomes is good enough, as is Andy Reid, to exploit that if they know that they're getting Kelsey double teamed here. So they got to figure this out. They've got the bye week to do it. The San Francisco 49ers do not. The San Francisco 49ers are playing on Thursday in Seattle against the Seahawks in a massively important game for the NFC West. I can't wait to break that down. Okay. Next topic. Whew, we're flying through these, but there's a lot here. I just didn't know the Saleh thing was going to happen. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills turning off their brain in crunch time, Matt. Okay, I want to walk through the end of game scenario, but I don't want to do it from the same way as like, oh, the Bills are sitting here. You should have run the ball. They're the first team ever not to run the ball even once, backed up with this much time left. Let's approach this from a more logical perspective. The Bills have the football. I want to go through, reset the game. Let's walk through the tape. And then I want to show the parallels to another game and then talk about some overarching problems for the Buffalo Bills here in a moment. So with their passing attack. Matt, why don't you go ahead and run that film?
Quick game reset here before we dive into the options. The game is tied at 20-20. There are only 32 seconds left in the fourth quarter before we get to overtime. You have no timeouts. They have 3 timeouts. 1st and 10 at your own 3-yard line. What are the reasonable goals here? Let's walk through them. Goal number 1. Best case outcome, gain 55 yards in 20 seconds with no timeouts and kick a field goal. This goal is very unrealistic. Let's trash it right now. It's very unlikely, too risky. Goal number 2, we're going to gain 1 single first down so that we don't have to punt it back. 1 first down, that's it. Our goal is so that we don't punt it back. This is a very reasonable goal, but let's see what else we got. Goal number 3, gain a couple of yards so you make it easier to punt the ball back because field position is everything, given that a field goal will beat you. This is worse than goal two, but it is the second best option. So let's see what the Buffalo Bills went with. 3 receivers at the top, 1 at the bottom. Josh Allen drops back, throws it, and that defender had more of a chance to get that than the offensive player. Incomplete. That was an 18-yard pass. Second down. Now we're chucking it even deeper. We're talking about a 40-yard pass down the field. 3rd and 10. We've only run off a few seconds. 2 incompletions. We're dropping back again. Very risky, long drop back. And another pass that's about 19 air yards. And now we're punting the ball. So what are we accomplishing here? We didn't accomplish anything. We basically went for goal number 1. We're trying to gain 55 yards to kick a field goal. Extremely unlikely. A very unrealistic plan by Sean McDermott offensively. And people are saying, oh, well, you should have just run it 3 times. But even if you did, other people are saying, well, they'd be able to use their timeouts. The goal is to gain a first down. Just gain a first down if you can. That's the best goal. The second best goal is to get a few yards to make it easier for your punter. Let's see how this punt goes. Booms it. But the returner's heels are on the 41-yard line. He's able to return it basically to the 45. A 47-yard line. They're already a few yards away, 46-yard line, only a few yards away. Now, 1st and 10, CJ drops back, gets a couple of yards, ball's at the 42-yard line. We got a field goal opportunity. Sure enough, Fairburn comes out for a 59-yard attempt, which seems extremely long, but is not in 2024. And that thing was good for 65 yards at least, and victory. Once again, Sean McDermott's end-of-game situations cost the Buffalo Bills a victory. I told you guys about this last week. I said I do not believe that Josh Allen will win one with Sean McDermott as the coach because I don't believe that he gets it. In the postseason, when he's going up against good coaches, he's going to be outcoached, and that's just that. Now, why am I showing you this still image of Josh Allen? Because this is the last time that you are going to see him on the field. Even though there's 11 minutes and 20 seconds left in this game, it is 2nd and 10, and they are down by 25 points. This was the prior week against the Baltimore Ravens. Watch what happens on these 2 plays. On 2nd down and 3rd down, you need 10 yards to gain a first down. Remember how similar this is to what happened against the Houston Texans on 2nd and 3rd down. They only need 10 yards. And we are chucking it outside the numbers, deep down the field, into triple coverage. 3rd and 10. If we don't get a first down, the game is officially over. What are we doing? A deep drop back, under duress, rolling out, and chucking it down the field, outside the numbers, into multiple coverage. And then the Ravens punt. And then the game is over, and there's still 11 minutes left in the 4th quarter, but we don't see Josh Allen again because they couldn't pick up a single first down because they were trying to chuck the ball 20-plus yards down the field when there was no need to chuck the ball 20-plus yards down the field. They just need to gain a first down.
I really don't know what the Bills are aiming to do most of the game. Let's talk a little bit bigger picture here. As in, I don't know what they're trying to be on offense with this passing game. Want to hear some shocking numbers? On the season, the Bills throw the ball between the numbers at the number 6 lowest rate. Number 6 lowest. Only 37% of their passes are between the numbers. Instead, they're attacking outside the numbers at one of the highest rates in the NFL. They also attack deep down the field at the number 2 highest rate in the NFL. Only the Packers are chucking the ball 15 plus yards downfield more often than the Buffalo Bills. In 2024, the Bills are throwing deep and outside the numbers at higher rates than they did in the heyday of Brian Daboll's 2020 and 2021 seasons. The difference is they don't have the players to win on those routes. In 2020 and 2021 was Steph Diggs. It was Gabe Davis with a dash of Emmanuel Sanders and John Brown mixed in. And in case you forgot, those last 2 players were extremely good catching balls on those deep routes outside the numbers. But this year, Josh Allen is trying to throw the ball deep and along the sideline to Mac Hollins, MVS, and Curtis Samuel. Are we serious here with this play calling? How are we going deep and to the sideline at this kind of rate? especially when you consider the result of these passes. Matt, why don't you pull up that first Josh Allen graphic? Okay, look at what we're doing here. Passes outside the numbers are on the left-hand side. Passes between the numbers are on the right-hand side. We are throwing nearly double outside the numbers as we are between the numbers. Yet passes outside the numbers league-wide rank 25 in success rate, 32 in completion rate, 14 in yards per attempt, number 7 in EPA per attempt because Josh Allen's had a couple of touchdowns there, but he's being pressured at the number 2 highest rate, so he ranks number 31 in least amount of pressure, and he's throwing the ball number 30 fastest. So he's holding onto the ball a long time to get these passes. He's inviting the pressure, and the completion rate of these passes is worst in the NFL. Passes between the numbers, on the other hand, rank number 10 in success rate. 80% completions versus 58%. Number 6 in completion rate. 8.5 yards per attempt versus 7.6 when he throws the ball outside the numbers. That's number 10 in yards per attempt when he passes the ball between the numbers. Number 3 in EPA per attempt when he passes the ball between the numbers, at a higher EPA than when he's passing the ball outside the numbers. In addition, he's getting pressured only 18% of these times because he's throwing the ball a lot faster. This is the offense that they should be running. The passes between the numbers to the Khalil Shakirs and the Dalton Kincaids and the James Cooks out of the backfield. This is the offense that the Bills should be running, attacking where they're the most efficient. And yet they're trying to go downfield outside the numbers at an even higher rate. And if you look at passes that they're throwing 10 plus yards downfield outside the numbers, and you just isolate those, they rank 31st in success, 32nd in completion rate, 27th in yards per attempt, and 15th in EPA per attempt. Matt, let's see how this looks graphically for Josh Allen. On the left-hand side of this graphic, I've isolated only the passes that are outside the numbers. At the top, you could see the completion rates. At the bottom, you could see the result of these passes. Red dots mean he completed it. Blue dots mean it's incomplete. And yellow dot mean is a touchdown. Look how different that looks versus the passes that are thrown between the numbers. If you looked at it all bunched together, you're not going to see this, but if you isolate this, you're going to see it a lot more clearly. I mean, we are seeing so many more red dots and higher completion rates and more efficiency, especially down the field, far less blue dots when we are throwing the ball between the numbers. It's just so much more efficient for the current form Buffalo Bills. So what are we doing with our play calling with Brady and this style of offense that we're trying to get Josh Allen to hold the ball, scramble around in the pocket, chuck it deep and outside the numbers at some of the highest rates in the NFL? We're talking about like the second highest rate in the NFL. This is not the Bills' offense. So, look, I have my issues with Sean McDermott and his late game management. I have my issues with what he's doing, with the ceiling of him as a head coach, as a strategist, as a tactician late in games, being able to make the right decisions. But this is 101. This is all game long. This is from the first snap of the very beginning of the game all the way through. This is on the offensive coordinator trying to dial up what Josh Allen was successful with under Brian Daboll. They're doing it more than what they were doing it with Brian Daboll. They're throwing it deeper. They're throwing it wider. And they don't have the players to do that. And it's not going to be successful. So they've got to play to the strengths of their team. And this is on the offensive coordinator, 100% on the offensive coordinator here. So we could all ride McDermott if we want to. I want to be clear, I'm not getting off of that. But I am adding that this offense can be a lot more efficient for you Bills fans out there that want to see your team have more success. If they just re-engage with their offensive philosophy and focus more on the middle of the field and attacking that way, they'll be a lot more efficient. Ian asks, don't the Bills coaches have these stats? Okay, at one point I was working with the Buffalo Bills in some capacity. I don't know what they have right now. I assure you they don't have this information from me. And if they don't change it, it shows that they're not paying attention. Like if I was advising them, this would be the first priority easily. So I don't know exactly what they're doing and what their plans are, but this is not it. Okay, let's quickly. Joe Brady has not been good the last 2 weeks at all. You're absolutely right, McKiffin. Ian, how much is McDermott's handicap? It's bad. It's bad. Nick Anderson, Samuel looked so good on a bad Washington team last year as well. I don't know. We must have differing memories of Curtis Samuel. Last year, I won a lot of props betting Curtis Samuel's longest completion under. Maybe it was the way he was being used at Washington, but like I do not think Curtis Samuel is this great receiver any longer. So I tend to disagree there on the Curtis Samuel aspect of this, but I do agree that he can be used better, and I do agree that he can provide upside to the Buffalo Bills, but he can't be a focus of your offense, and he's not going to have success in the ways that they're trying to use him right now. Okay, let's get on to previewing strength of schedule real quick, and Matt, we're going to fly through these graphics, so let's bring up the first one here. Okay. What you're looking at, guys, right now is the past defensive efficiency of your opponents versus the future defensive efficiency for week 6. So this week only. What I want to call your attention to is the New York Giants. New York Giants are going to see much more success with their efficiency this week on offense because they were playing a more difficult schedule than average. I got to fix that off to the right where it says easier than average above. It's actually harder than average above. The Jets have played the most difficult schedule of defenses on the season. I shared that with you guys last week. I said it's not going to get much better this week against the Minnesota Vikings. It did not. It's not going to get much better this week against the Buffalo Bills. But eventually they will get an easier schedule in the future of opposing defenses. But right now it's still pretty tough, and it's been tough, and that's why the offense hasn't looked good. And I'm sure that's part of the reason why Robert Saleh got fired today is because of that. So absolutely, let's look at the New York Giants here, Matt. So the Giants this week on Sunday Night Football are taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. And what you can see at the top is the defensive efficiency of opponents that the New York Giants have played to date. The Seahawks are trending in a much worse direction thanks to their injuries. So if you rate their most recent performance higher, they're not the 7th best defense, naturally. But the Giants have also played the Browns. They've played the Vikings. And you could see a game against the Washington Commanders, who was a team in the Bengals stratosphere from a defensive efficiency. Keep in mind, the Giants could have won that game. Naturally, the Washington Commanders didn't score a touchdown. They kicked all field goals. They didn't punt the ball at all in that game. But the Giants lost their kicker. And so they were going for it on 4th down. They were moving the ball. It was one of their best games. Now they're playing a defense that's even worse than that this week against the Cincinnati Bengals. But meanwhile, the Cincinnati Bengals, look at the bottom of the offenses that they have played. They have played the Ravens offense, the Washington Commanders offense, and the Kansas City Chiefs offense. So they've played 3 brutal offenses, part of the reason why their defensive numbers aren't as good and are worst in the NFL right now. And sure enough, the New York Giants offense hasn't looked good either. So this is one of those strength on strength type games where you've got things that are favoring the Giants offense, but you also got things that are favoring the Bengals defense. The Bengals defense should look a little bit better against the Giants offense, but the Giants offense should look a little bit better against the Bengals defense. So interesting portrayal there. Matt, let's go to the next one. All right, this is looking at pass defense only. So the Tennessee Titans are a team that stand out. They have played the most difficult schedule of pass defenses on the season, and now they're going to play an easier than average Indianapolis Colts pass defense this week. I don't know. I think they're going to stick with Will Levis here. If he's healthy, that's certainly what it sounds like. Mason Rudolph could be in the mix if Will Levis isn't healthy, but once we hit Wednesday, which is tomorrow, we'll see if Will Levis is able to take any of those reps or not. But once he's healthy, the coach has said he's committed to starting him. So better opportunity for Will Levis to have some success after playing the number 1 most difficult schedule of pass defenses on the season. The Houston Texans, they'll be going up against a much more easy opponent than they've played on the season. New England Patriots sound formidable, but that Patriots pass defense has not been good. They lost Jabril Peppers. They've lost, who knows what's going on with him. They've lost a number of other guys to defensive injury. That New England Patriots defense is falling off big time. Houston Texans offense could look pretty nice. On the other side, that circle around the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the top there, that should be red. These are two teams that have played in the Bucs and the Bills easier than average schedule of pass defenses, and now they're going up against harder than average schedule this week. So Matt, let's go to the next one. We're going to focus on the Tennessee Titans. I want to focus particularly about, you see those schedule of pass defenses that they played this year. The Jets, the Bears, and the Miami Dolphins. 3 top 10 pass defenses on the season. Now they're going up against the Indianapolis Colts, which ranked number 21 defending the pass. Should look a lot better for Will Levis here, theoretically. I say theoretically very emphatically because theoretically it should. On the other side, look at the Buffalo Bills. The pass defenses that they have played, they got the Cardinals, they got the Jaguars, 2 bottom 5 pass defenses on the season. They did go up against the Texans and the Miami Dolphins, 2 top 10 pass defenses, but now they play the most difficult in the NFL after firing their head coach. So we're going to see on Monday night how Josh Allen looks. But look, Joe Brady, Sean McDermott, somebody send him the video that I just made here. Tell them what they need to be doing a little bit more offensively. Figure out other ways to try to attack the weaknesses of the New York Jets defense rather than deep and outside the numbers. I don't know that it's going to work against Sauce Gardner and company on Monday Night Football. Okay, Matt, next one. All right, this one is the run defensive efficiency opponents for rushing offenses. So if you look at the Washington Commanders, that's the one that I want to highlight here in particular. Matt, why don't you go to the next slide? Washington has played a very easy schedule of run defenses, as you can see here. All the first 4 opponents ranked 20th or worse in run defense efficiency. Then they played the Cleveland Browns, which ranked 18th. They haven't even played a top half run defense yet this year. Now they're going up against the number 1 in the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens. Cliff Kingsbury, fortunately, they've got, now this is statistics for running back runs, not for quarterback scrambles. Cliff Kingsbury better figure out a strategy offensively that does not lean into the run game early in this game. We'll see, but you've got a rookie quarterback going on the road at the Battle of the Beltway against the Baltimore Ravens. If you try to lean into the run game and all of a sudden you're doing nothing but putting Jaden Daniels in 3rd and long, obvious pass situations on the road in Baltimore against that pass rush, against that defensive line, I don't think that's a recipe for success. In addition, they'll probably then be punting the ball back. And the Baltimore Ravens are one of the best teams at getting out in games. They score so many points early in games. They understand the importance of jumping out to early leads, keeping that playbook open in the second half of the game. Think about what that's going to do then for Jaden Daniels if he's trailing by double digits potentially at halftime in this one, because they tried to run the ball too much at the beginning of the game. Obvious pass situations on 3rd down. Ravens get the ball. Ravens are scoring. Commanders are trailing at halftime. Commanders are going to need to be coming out here and chucking the ball in obvious passing situations all second half. That also doesn't bode too well. So the who gets the early lead in this game is going to be so massive. And it's important that the Washington Commanders and Cliff Kingsbury approach this with the right philosophy. Yes, you have a young quarterback, but how do you want to set him up for success? 3rd down passes all the time? Or are you going to be efficient on early downs? And if you can't run the ball, how are you going to get efficient there? On the flip side, the Baltimore Ravens do rank really well against the run. They have played the number 30 offense of the Ravens, the 25th of the Cowboys who can't run the football, the 24th of the Buffalo Bills. So it's not like they've been playing massive juggernauts along the way. It's a step up in class for them going up against this Washington Commanders rushing attack, but interesting matchup there. Matt, next one. I think this might be one of the last ones we do. I think there's one more after this, but this is the last big one. On the defensive side of the ball, I just wanted to flash this up there real quick. The Philadelphia Eagles pass efficiency offenses that they have played has been the hardest schedule in the NFL. Now they're going to be playing one of the easiest. That circle bottom left should not be red. It should be green. they're going to be playing one of the worst passing attacks in the NFL, the Cleveland Browns. That is going to be a huge step down in competition for them this week for their defense. So it's on Vic Fangio. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, let's look at the Seattle Seahawks, who have played the easiest schedule of passing offenses so far this year. The easiest schedule. And now they're going up against one of the most efficient passing attacks in the San Francisco 49ers. So, Matt, next page. You can see here what I mean by the Philadelphia Eagles at the top. They have done nothing but play top 11 pass offenses so far this season. And now you're going up again, and the Saints, by the way, are not number 2 anymore. I ran these yesterday during the day. I did not incorporate last night's performance. Now you're going up against the 30th ranked pass offense of the Cleveland Browns. On the other side, we've got 3 bottom 6 offenses passing the football that have faced the Seattle Seahawks plus the Giants. The last time that they played a pass offense that ranked above league average, we're not even talking great, we're just talking above league average, was the number 2 ranked Detroit Lions. And you remember that game? That was the game Jared Goff is standing there after he went 18 for 18, multiple passing touchdowns, like absolute ridiculous performance by Jared Goff. So now we got the San Francisco 49ers going up against this Mike McDonald pass defense. Let's see what happens there. Okay. Let's go, before we get into a couple more quick things, and man, we are rolling on an hour and a half here. Thanks for sticking around, guys. Really appreciate, hopefully you guys like this. If you like this, I'm not supposed to be going this long. Thumbs up, give me some likes. We really are not supposed to be going this long, but I've got so much good information I wanted to share with you. The other thing that we're doing with this YouTube channel, if you guys are watching this on X, and there's a lot of you over there at X, I want you to make sure that you go over to YouTube, search for Sharp Football Analysis rather, and follow us there and hit that alarm bell, because I might do it again this Saturday. This past Saturday, spur of the moment, I went live and dropped a bunch of props. And I want to show you how some of these props did. We absolutely cleaned up with props this week. It was part of our 26-12, 68% record. I was just giving these away on YouTube live on Saturday during some of the college football games. Go roll that clip, Matt. One, that was a look based upon weather. We went under on that one. Also the matchup. The Bears are weak up front. We're going to have some rushing success by the Panthers. The Bears are strong in the back. They're secondary. I absolutely think that Dalton one is pretty solid, and there's some good numbers still available on it. I ended up going pretty hard on Tucker Kraft, and I did some ladders on Tucker Kraft as well. I hit his receptions, which was 3.5 plus 122 when we released it to subs. I hit his receiving yards over. We got it at 31.5. And then I took some of the alts, again, 40, 50 plus. What I decided to do with Bigsby is I took his upward scenario, expecting that he's going to break a nice sized run here. I took ETN's longest, Bigsby's longest, over 10.5. And then I just alted him. And I went stronger on the alt than I normally do. So I went 40 plus at plus 260, 50 plus at plus 500, and 60 plus at plus 900. So that's just an example of props that we shared for free on that live show, just me sitting around on a Saturday afternoon, and everybody who is following live got those. And you know, the good thing about taking some of these alts is when you're right, it makes up for being wrong on some of the alts that you've taken before. I mean, that Bigsby one where I decided just to go as longest over, which was 10.5, and then alt at 40, 50, and 60, plus 900 payouts on that. And that makes up for a lot of swings and misses that you might have elsewhere on your card. So we are giving gold away. You guys made a bunch of money. I know subs made a bunch of money. We did a special promotion last week where we did a ladder bet. We're going to be giving away, I want to say it's like $960 to subs this week. We're breaking it up into 5 different people because that Tucker Kraft one in this video that we hit, I didn't mention in detail the alts we gave away to subs. That was our big ladder one that we gave away to subs. We did 40 plus yards, 50 plus yards, 60 plus yards, plus over 3.5 receptions at plus 122, as well as his over receiving yards. And naturally, I mean, he almost led the game in receiving yards at 88 yards. He had scored multiple touchdowns. And so we said we were going to give away to subs all the money that was made off of $100 bets on all of those. So it totaled up to over $900, almost $1,000 that later today we're giving away to 5 different subs for a $100 ticket on all of those bets. I just can't emphasize enough the start that we are on to the season. $100 better is up $6,235. So go use code SHOW40. They've confirmed that is on. They've confirmed that SHOW40 works. So if you guys in the chat aren't seeing that, let me know. But yeah, Dominic, you have to talk about Minshew's lucky play. Peter, you said this a couple times in the chat. I understand. I actually didn't even see the play. We took Minshew longest on my Friday show. I give away 2 longest props. One was the Dalton longest, which hit. I also to subs. I was teetering on giving the Dalton one. I said that I made that late switch. It was going to be who is a Jaden Reed's longest over, which also hit on that deep bomb. So we would have won that one either way, but we lost the Minshew's longest. We took his under total passing yards against Denver, and that one won. He eventually got benched, which we thought was going to be a possibility. That's part of the reason why we liked that one. But we also took his longest under, and that took a lucky play, deep bomb down the sideline to his tight end to lose that one for us. It happens. Can't be perfect on all of these, but that was one that we lost. I want to try prop bets. What's the best site for that? Jules is asking. Well, if you guys want to advertise a prop site, if any of you companies out there want me to do some advertising for your sites, let me know. We can do plenty of advertising. I could answer that question right now with Jules and promote your site. But there's a lot of good sites out there that offer props. Pretty much every place that you're betting on games, you can bet on props. They've got them up there. So just get an account and you can join in on the fun. We're working a lot harder on props this year, and props are cleaning up for us massively. Jimmy Football. Thanks to you, I made over $300. I appreciate that, Jimmy Football. Definitely love making you guys some money. I think if you guys watched the show on Fridays, you're cashing. If you watched the live stream on Saturday, you're cashing. That's the whole goal, is to make some money. And then if you think a subscription is right for you with the deals that we're offering, go check those out as well. Okay, quick look at some of the lines this week. Matt, why don't you pull those up? Yeah, there you go, full screen on this. Some of the early movement, we've seen a little bit of money come in here on the San Francisco 49ers. We've seen a little bit of money come in on the over, but not much. It opened at 3 and 47. It's 3.5 and 47.5. The London game, Chicago, Jacksonville. That took a little bit of over money yesterday, up from about 43.5, 43 to up to 44, some 44.5 out there. Chicago Bears taking a little bit of money as well. This Baltimore Ravens one took a bunch of money yesterday on the over. DK has it up to 53 right now. This is a big game for both of these teams, not just because they both have a winning record, but I don't think you guys understand, being from the DMV myself, how both of these teams, the fans don't really have a rivalry because they don't play much, and the only time they tend to play is in the preseason. So the fans don't care. Like, we don't care in Virginia or Washington. We don't really care about the Ravens, like rooting against them, and the Ravens fans don't care rooting against the Commanders because the Commanders have been bad anyway. So it's not really competition for them. But the players in this game, massive rivalries, and the reason is because they all go out in DC and run into each other. And they talk mad trash if one of them wins in the preseason. I can pull back some clips, maybe we'll for the Friday show, about how these players circle the game in the preseason where they're playing their opponent so they can ensure that they try to win that one. So they get like bragging rights all rest of summer and into the fall. Anytime they're going out, the Ravens don't want the Commanders to beat them. The Commanders don't want the Ravens to beat them. I think it's going to be a fun game on Sunday. Naturally, you have Lamar versus Jaden. It's going to be absolutely incredible. The Eagles-Browns game, that opened at 44, has been bet down to 43.5. There's some 43 showing up. I can assure you it's not because of the Eagles' defense being great. They are off of a bye, and they're getting back A.J. Brown. It could be, I don't know about Devonta Smith. We'll see about Lane Johnson as well. I mean, they had lost those 3 guys before their bye. Now they're getting those guys back. It's because this Cleveland Browns offense is a dumpster fire. Absolute dumpster fire. So that's a quick look at some of the lines that we're seeing around the league. We'll be getting into some of our bets on the Friday show. Stick around for that. You like Zay Flowers this week, Peter? Say he should have another monster game. Jacksonville's London advantage matters the next 2 games. How much will it matter? Yes, their experience over there definitely matters. They know when to go. They know how to be prepared. The Bears already left. They're there now. Let's say Tuesday. They're already there. We'll see. They had to leave a couple players that were injured back. We'll see if some of those players are able to join them or not, but they're without several of their players that they left behind. But the Jaguars, that advantage especially is going to be more pronounced next week with them staying over there for the entirety of the week. Arizona Green Bay is a fun game, SKJR. Yes, that's one of the games that has a higher total than most. Where are they here on the betting board? Game 267. By the way, when I send games out, some people ask, like, what are those numbers you send in front of the games? That's called a rotation number. That's what you used to use when you're in Vegas betting these games, or you're phoning up when you're betting with your bookie. You give the rotation number of the game. Every single sporting event that you can bet on has some sort of a rotation number. Most are 3 digits, but a lot of the times when you're talking, for football at least, but when you're talking about baseball, when you're talking about added games in college football, they have more digits than that. That's the number because it's a unique identifier for the week. There's no other team that's going to be numbered 275, but the Indianapolis Colts this week. So you say, I want 275 -1. That means you want the Indianapolis Colts -1. So I give those out every time we're releasing plays. I think most people that are good services should be sharing the rotation number with you as well, but that's what that means. So Arizona 267 on the board. That total open actually 50 at several spots, including DK, 50.5 it opened there, down to 49.5, a little bit of under money coming in on them. We'll see how the Green Bay Packers offense looks after that game in LA and if they can get a little bit more explosive. All right, that'll do it. We're going way too long on this, but I appreciate all you guys following along. Make sure you go over to the Sharp Football Analysis on YouTube. Please like this. Please share a good comment. We're trying to do the best we can for you, giving you guys unique views to help you get ready for the upcoming weekend of football. Thanks to Kurt Benkert for joining us. Make sure you follow him on Twitter. And also, I want to remind you to check out his podcast called Pocket Presence. Check out Kurt's podcast called Pocket Presence. And we'll see you guys on Friday, noon Eastern, Tuesdays and Fridays. We're going to be breaking down all the best bets for the weekend's action, college football, NFL, player props, etc. Thank you guys for all the comments. Salute. Love this. We appreciate you guys a ton. Keep it up. Keep sharing the love. We'll give it right back to you in the form of the best content that we can deliver. We'll see you guys Friday.